It's been a big week in the world of animal welfare this week with the business benchmarking farm animal welfare report that I know you were up in London yesterday to see the launch of. So really delighted to get your thoughts this afternoon. So thank you for joining us.
No problem.
So Mandy, great. So let's jump straight in if we may. So for those people in the meat sector that aren't aware, tell us, what is the BBFAW?
Yeah, so it's a mouthful to say the very least. The business benchmark on farm animal welfare is an international benchmark that was set up back in 2012 and looks at what is now 150 food companies and scores them, assesses them on their animal welfare commitments, specifically for any farmed animals that are in their supply chain.
150 companies internationally. That sounds like a really big initiative. So why is it important, Mandy?
The aim of it is to try and get investors and the investment world interested in animal welfare. So they now have 34 investment companies, which equates to something like 2.6 trillion of managed funds that have pledged that animal welfare is part of their responsible investment tools. So it's giving them a way of assessing food companies on their commitments to things like animal welfare.
So we think it's really influencing investment decisions then, yes?
Yeah, that's certainly the aim. Yeah.
Well, and we know from other sectors that when the investment community decide it's important, it's linked back to commercial opportunities, but also ultimately because it's important to consumers, yeah?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yep.
Fantastic. It sounds like a great example of driving impact when it comes to the ever-changing ESG agendas. So that's fantastic. So could you just help us understand briefly how a company is assessed, and probably really importantly, is it a voluntary program?
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one because certainly originally you didn't have a choice. The companies were chosen by the benchmarking organization and the secretariat. Now each year, if a new company comes in, it goes out for consultation as to whether those companies should be introduced, but it's very much almost imposed on those companies. Originally seen, I think, when it was less than 100 as the biggest in terms of value and impact across the world. I'm not sure that's necessarily true now, but it does have businesses in retail, producers themselves, manufacturers, bars and restaurants. So it has got a wide range of companies. And basically with a lot of benchmarking, it relies on people trawling through websites and CSR or ESG reports, looking for information against the methodology. So it's all people sitting in the background and looking at your website to see what promises and policies you've got in place and what reports you have in place.
So is it all virtually assessed, or is there on farm? It's all virtually assessed.
It's all virtually assessed, but there is a right of reply. So each company will get their draft report ahead of yesterday's final report. And they have a chance to go back and say, oh, I think you've misunderstood something, or you haven't found this document. So it's two ways at that point. If you want to interact with it, I don't know how many companies do, but those that I support always make sure that they've gone back and said, yeah, you've got the information right, or hang on a minute, I think you've missed some marks here, or missed one of our key pieces of information sat on the internet.
Well, with the link into the investment community, I think making sure that you're seen in the most positive light and they've got access to all the data would obviously make lots of sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I did look briefly before we talked today at the report that obviously came out yesterday. And I think it's really exciting and encouraging to see such a range of companies on there, from some of the big global players, some of the big European players, but also some of the food outlets that we would use every day down through the high street, whether in the UK or overseas. So it feels that lots of people are recognising the importance of the programme and are being part of the change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
It does mean that some of them haven't. Some of them are there because they've been selected and they've sat in tier 6 forever. So that they're not part of the journey. So, you know, they could have been sat in tier 6 probably since 2012 because it's something that they're not particularly interested in.
Yes. Yes, that's fair. Thank you. So with the report being shared this week, one of the things they've talked about is the reset. Could you just help us understand a little bit, why the reset and what the reset means for companies that are involved?
So essentially, 10 years on, they felt it was important to look at what impact had been made and what changes need to be made. There was a crucial change in the partnerships behind BBFAW. It was originally set up with Compassion in World Farming and World Protection of Animals. WPA came out, and 4paws, a different NGO activist body, came in, and they wanted to shake it up a bit. So it was like, are we doing enough? Are these still the right themes to be looking at? How can we try and have a better impact on the farm animal welfare community? So last year, there was a break. We didn't have a formal assessment. There was no formal report, and the methodology changed quite a lot, looking more at not have you got the paperwork in place and have you made all the promises, but are you reporting on whether those policies are being actioned and what impact you're having on farmed animals specifically.
Excellent. Thank you. And is the assessment, with the focus on it, and as we've talked about, the link to consumers, the link to businesses doing the right thing from their own ESG agenda, but also that linked into the finance and institutional sector. If a company drives, or as a company drives improvement, how easy is it to get recognition for that? And is it something what frequency are they reassessed at?
So it's an annual assessment. So we were told yesterday the next one will be October, November of 2024. So we have to have all our reports up and ready for scrutiny then. And essentially what they've done this year in the impact section, it now covers 6 species. So that's more species than previously. So laying hens, broilers, beef and dairy, salmon, and one other, and pork. And there are 3 specific questions behind each one of those species. So that's 18 of the impact questions. And then there's one on pre-slaughter that covers all species and one on transport that covers all species. So a lot of those are new. A lot of them are metrics that the industry hasn't really been looking at previously. So the industry itself hasn't got a mechanism for reporting. So it's like, how many of your beef animals were dehorned? We don't know. So that's going to take a while for the industry to work out how to report back to their customers. And really those are where a lot of the marks are. And now it's like, do you report on this? Have you got 1 to 20% of your supply base that's compliant? And so it's very much structured on your level of impact in your supply chain. So the more of your supply chain that is compliant with that criteria and you're reporting on it, the bigger the score that you can get.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mandy. That's definitely made that a bit clearer for sure. So lots of interest, lots of activity. It sounds like it's going to be something that's going to continue to grow. Just help me understand how can we help them as Prof? So a company's looking for support. What services can Prof do to help them improve their score and understand the matrix?
Yeah, so it's like with all of these things, it's really just understanding how to have those conversations with the supply chains, particularly as I alluded to with some of these new measures. It's working out what mechanisms to put in place. So where we can help is understanding how that information can be obtained, where we need to get the information from, what changes need to be made within the supply chain to actually make the change in the first place and then make that change visible. So it's going to be quite a slow process, and I would urge companies not to get disheartened. We now have, sadly, 82% of the 150 companies sat in the bottom 2 tiers, but those in tier 5 really now, with some work and some understanding, can start to differentiate themselves and move themselves up quite quickly if they put the work in. And I think our role is to say, okay, it looks like everybody's gone backwards. It looks like we're all in the same pool together, but we can make a difference and we can move up those tiers if we have the support. Companies will find it difficult to do it on its own. So first thing is the mindset that they want to improve it. And it's not just for the benchmarking, but particularly if you rely on investors within your organization, then it's a great opportunity to tell a good story, and initially find out how many of those things you could actually report on and get a good score. You just don't know it yet because you've not asked the right questions within the supply chain, and we can help make you ask the right questions within the supply chain.
Fantastic. No, that's excellent, Mandy. I think, if I play back what I'm hearing, I think it's about helping retailers and food manufacturers or processors or producers directly. It's about understanding what best practice is and giving them the confidence to start the journey, very much like we're seeing with sustainable packaging, where until you start the journey, you don't know what great work you're doing, and you don't know which areas you can focus on for your quick wins and your longer term benefits. But it sounds a really exciting report. I look forward to reading it in detail later on. Mandy, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. And if you're interested in how Prof can help you, please check out our website at www.profcg.com. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark.